welcome all to another PIDE's webinar on a very, very interesting topic that PIDE has been talking and working on for quite some time now. Road transportation is an important component of the entire logistic chain, with railways close to being close to being zero or not really working. The modal shares in Pakistan are highly skewed towards road. As we have been talking, as we have been telling people, that the share of the railway in this modal transport is hardly 4%, and that is also a big question mark, how it is 4%. So when it comes to transportation, the sector is huge, both in terms of passenger and goods. And we've got very interesting players in the sector who are pushing the frontiers, and they're not only operating in the local economy, but they are now heading towards international connectivity through land. So we have with us vessel movers, one of the key players in the transport sector in Pakistan. So let's start with Abdur Rehman Saab. Abdur Rehman Saab, kindly introduce yourself and then you can start your presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sabah, for having us. We are very pleased to be here. Please let me know if I'm audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah,
so we are extremely pleased and honored to be invited by PIDE, and Dr. Sabah has been instrumental in making this happen. Here we are here to represent vessel movers and to tell you a little story, or how we are doing our things and where we are looking at and where we want to go. So to begin with, as the agenda goes, we need to appraise the worthy audience with a little history of our organization. So I believe Mr. Waqar is the best person for that. He's already here. So if you may allow me, I'm going to share my screen if that is possible.
You have right, sir. Yes, you have right, sir. You can share.
Okay. So, Waqar, if you can take over and give some orientation about the history of our organization before we move on to the actual part, how we're going to proceed from here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Abdur Rehman. Malik Waqar here. I am actually heading the international business and projects. But unfortunately, as Mr. Nauman is not well today, so I have to take over the seat of Mr. Nauman as well. So I think I'm audible. Hello?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Okay. Actually, we started this journey in 1994. We introduced, or we unveiled, the logo and the name of vessel movers in the market of Pakistan in 1994 in transportation only. We started with the trawlers, logistics, and carriages. In 2001, from 1994 to 2001, we did only the logistic business. We didn't enter into passenger transport. And in 2001, we started our bus service, passenger transport, with the name and logo of vessel movers. Initially, the first bus we started from Sargodha to Multan, because we already had a very good setup there in Multan, and Sargodha we were basically based. So we selected the market of Sargodha to start the passenger business from Sargodha to Multan. But it was only one bus at that moment in 2001. 2004, a little bit our model was changed, and we went into some signature bus service, that is non-stop luxury bus service. That was actually the new idea that time. In 2004, only one company was doing this, following this model, but not up to the mark. So we actually decided to enter in that market where the competition was low, but the entry barrier was very high, because we needed the luxury buses that time, which was not the trend of the market. In and 2004, simultaneously when we started, when we changed the model from common bus service to the luxury bus service, we started different stations as well. Multan to Rawalpindi route we established that time, and computerized ticketing we headed towards that, because of the luxury bus traveling. We also focused on the different weak points of the other service related to the service. That was also ticketing, manual ticketing that was in practice that time. We started digital ticketing that time, computerized ticketing. 2006, we explored, we explored new destinations, DG Khan, Bahawalpur, we added, actually Southern Punjab, different cities we brought on board. And in 2008, we started to touch the small stations as well, like Okada and here in Gujranwala. And 2010, we expanded the fleet with new Devo buses, Devo company buses on almost all routes. And 2011, we started the most, at the time, currently the most busy route, Lahore Rawalpindi, and we provided a better buses as well as timings, and as well as the service standard. In 2012, Multan to Faisal and Sadqabad to Multan, Lahore to Rawalpindi, those routes we started for our passengers with luxury buses. 2014, Peshawar route was established. This is actually the way we made up ourselves, established in this passenger transport. But simultaneously, we were also in the field of logistics and carriages. But our might be, you can say, the most you can say admirable thing, our admirable services became not logistic but the passengers transport. In 2016, we started Lahore Faisal route, and 2018 actually we started one of other sector, that is with a brand name of KCS. That was basically a courier company, which because we were already having almost all the routes on board, so we started the courier service. We decided to also enter into the business of courier service in 2018. And in 2020, IT integration, Bookaroo and Rakoob, these three things, three different segments, we also started tapping. One, Bookaroo is, we launched the app for online ticketing and other services. Rakoob, we started a taxi service, which we facilitated our customers, our passengers, to who came without their own cars or their own means, so they can hire the taxi, trustable taxi service from our terminals. And in 2022, this past year, we started our intra-city service. That all the time, right from the 2001 until 2021, we were not in the business of intra-city. In 2022, we started our intra-city business with a BRT, establishing an independent BRT division, and started with our collaboration with CDA, and having a project of blue line, green line, and orange line on board. This was a brief history of Faisal Movers. how we started the business and came up to 2023. Yeah, Mr.
I just
Rehman.
want to add a few things. There are a few things we've been doing all along. Before BRT, we were having one or two routes in Multan or Dijihan for intercity transportation, urban transport. That was on demand of some political influence or whatever. So, as an organized business segment, BRT started in 2022. And I believe most of the people are from Islamabad and they would have an idea what is we are talking about. There are three types of buses already running in Islamabad. One is that Orange Line bus that goes to airport from Peshawar Mode, and two other routes, a blue line and a green line from PIMS to Barakau and Gulbarga Green, respectively. So this is, a very quick brief on the journey, how it started, and this is how it's looking like now. But the journey was not so easy. It had, a lot of struggle and a lot of efforts went into the whole journey. And the family, the Khaja family, they have been extremely, gritty and consistent, and they had this wonderful idea and they pursued as a whole family. Now it is a case where we have become one of the largest public transport providers in the country, as well as among top 10 logistics providers, the carriage and logistics providers in the country, working with the organizations like NLC and POSCO and Food Department, and also in the field business of liquid and solid cargoes. So just to, as per the agenda given, I would like to give some idea how difficult it was as a journey from 1994. So first of all, every business that has to, cope up with is the entry barrier challenges. While this logistics or transportation, either commercial or public, it revolves around a very expensive equipment, that is a truck or a bus. So first of all, we had an entry barrier, and while you are getting into such business, there are all kinds of difficulties. Not only that, the market is not very conducive, the legal framework is not easy. So much so, we are being in 2022, being the largest entity of our industry, we still face so many challenges regarding this legal framework that we are unable to establish our own terminals in various parts of country, especially Punjab. For example, if we talk about Lahore, there is a very funny law being observed that if we want to establish a terminal within the boundaries of the city, the city is considered to be any place within the ring road of Lahore. You have to have at least 50 canals of land, and that land you have to have the ownership type of rights or lease rights. While nobody is naive to know that 50 canals of land empty in a city like Lahore is next to impossible. And if there is any, the cost and the opportunity cost of that land is so high that it cannot be spared for bus terminal alone. So that happened with what we see, the market competition. The market competition, there are some people who were inside the city and they didn't want other companies to make their terminals inside the cities. So they somehow, we believe that it is kind of connivance, because any law which is not facilitating the public or the businessman is not a good law. So it cannot be with good intentions. So even in 2023, we are facing these challenges that the legal framework does not allow an easy entry to the market where we can find good routes to plan. And if you see the journey we have just skimmed you through, we had to start our business from the areas that were left out mostly by the people who are already in the business, like Skyways or Daewoo's. They had little interest in the underdeveloped area of South Punjab. And likewise, this is where we saw our opportunity and encashed on that. So that is where we become so strong, and we established the highest level of services that brought us here. So while these, in every industry, like, ourselves, we have a very strong challenge of human resource. The quality of the human resource is not so good as we always, being Pakistani, boast of or try to take a lot of credit that we have very good human resource. We have very good humans maybe, but not the trained or the properly educated human resource. This is a challenge we face every day. Any industry we're working in, especially our industry that has a lot of things to do with the lives of the people and the goods of the people, where this is where we need more sophisticated and more educated and trained human resource. But unfortunately, this is a big challenge we still face. So then, while logistics and transportation being a very integral part of GDP of the country, because all the businesses are dependent on the logistics, be it any kind of transportation, be personal or commercial, we don't enjoy the status of industry. So while the transportation industry does not enjoy the status of industry, there is a big problem regarding the raising the capital or getting loans from the banks. There are all kinds of funny, conditions being imposed by the banks, and it is a very expensive industry. The equipments are very expensive. B, the raising of capital is very expensive due to the business is not as an industry. So this has been a very big challenge to all the peoples. So that is one reason we see that there are a very small number of people entering into this business. And even if somebody is entering, they cannot do it independently. Well, the need and the demand of the public transportation has multiplied manifold over the last few years, a couple of decades. So that's Dr. Sabha. This is the fundamental part. We come to the conclusion that how we started, where we are, and what is the challenges we had to face while reaching here. So, if you may allow me, I just want to share a few slides. Then we may proceed to the core objective of this webinar regarding the future, how we look at how the market, the policies, and the public sector and the government, they need to come up and cope up with the challenges what we as a country are facing regarding the environment, the traffic, the population, the planning, and everything. So,
Sure, sir.
Thank you very much. If there is anything we want to, come clean up here, we'll be very happy to take a question or two here.
Rehman sir, we'll have a question answer session after your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. So just a bird's eye view of the logistics sector. This excludes the public transportation. If you may see there, certain parts, the logistics contains to every business, every industry that produces any goods or any services. So first of all, if somebody needs to import or export anything, there is a freight forwarding of the part. They need to book ship or an air cargoes that comes into the country or goes out. So these are freight forwarding, air freight, ocean freight, just for the raw materials and the goods. Then there is, in most of the countries, there are rail transports and obviously the road transportations. Road network, that is 90% of Pakistan's freight traffic, which is very unfortunate as a country, because this leaves us with a very high dependency on the roads, a very extreme burden on limited available resources for a country developing like us. And then similarly, the road network also provides for the 90% of the public transport of our country. Other transport means like, air or rail or even, waterways. We don't catch and make up only even 5% of that market share. So the road transportation is the actually network, the road network, which bears all the burden of this country for commercial or personal transportation or for business or any person to do whatever they want to do in for living, for their joy or anything. So then this industry that is divided into two parts. One is commercial logistics or commercial transportation. The other is public transportation. We've just seen that for the commercial logistics, there is distribution, warehousing, and freight, and the dry and liquid, and containerized and break bulk, all kinds of. For public transportation, there is the sad part, actually the sadder part. Commercial logistics, we are, coping up with one way or another. We are matching up the international standards at time also. But the public transportation is where we lack the most, especially the intracity, the local transportation, where we don't have any organized rapid transit systems or transportation networks. So that's why we have to contend with the very unhuman friendly and economy friendly and environment friendly means like rickshaws, taxis, and other things. So there are very few cities that are lucky to have some rapid transit systems or buses, but that too is too little to meet any requirement of the public. Then there is the question that how this can be very efficient and where we need to be. This is the basic traits a good integrated logistic company or a business needs to have. It has to be efficient, it has to be flexible, and the quality service. I am sure this is an area most of you people have very good idea. There are very few companies who are using these integrated systems in Pakistan. I've given some example about that as well. And this is a little overview. How the nomenclature of the freight transportation is comprised. And on the right side, there is a very small list of the challenges that informal segment is providing us that we have to look at. So I believe this is not the area we are here to discuss. So that's why I keep it very precise and small on this. That is the part which I believe was the question of most interest. What a quality public transport system is. This is where we understand that there is a lot of things that are needed to be done in our country. And this is where we need to make most of the development in the days to come. So first of all, this public transportation system we are talking about, why are we talking about public transportation system? Yes, if we see in Islamabad, if we see in Lahore, if we see in Karachi or any medium to big size city of the country, we see that there is a big mess going around everywhere. Whenever we are at the road, we are not certain that we will be able to reach our destination in timely manner. We are never sure that we will feel ourselves very safe and comfortable at all. So the dependence on the personal means of transportation is so high that it is eating up the economic capacity of the country. What we believe is a good public transportation system needs to have most of these traits, if not all, that needs to cover all the areas, most of the part of the cities where the people go and from where the people come from, to and from. There's a very classic example in Islamabad. We have a very, very minute coverage of public transportation, and even then that public transportation is so hugely overloaded, while it cannot be considered a very reliable system, while people have to reach there with their personal transportation to even catch a metro bus or a other routes of the recently started operating routes. Then there is the frequency. We have this fundamental question of frequency, because the frequency means how often we get, or after how long interval we get ourselves boarded on a public transport. Like if you see, we've been working in Lahore. In Lahore, only the Lahore 64 buses of Lahore metro bus, they are transporting over 160,000 passengers a day. Why is that? That one route carries so many passengers. It's always breaching the capacity because it has a very good frequency of about 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes, people are able to find a bus. So they are easily, relying on that for doing any of their, chores, or for reaching to hospital, or making to an exam center, or catching up an interview. So that's where they find themselves that they can rely on a public transport, and instead of going on a car or a motorbike or a private owned, hired rickshaw, taxi, then it is easy that every 2 minutes they're going to get a bus and they reach there with safety, if not most of the comfort, because it's so overloaded most of the time. Similarly, if we see from the recently started routes in Islamabad from PIMS, which go to maybe Gulberg, it's always overcrowded, and there's just very little number of buses, 10 buses that have been provided for that. Out of those 10 buses, it's impossible most of the time to keep all of them in service, because a few of them may be needing some repair works. So we cannot make the next bus available before 10 minutes. That is where the reliability of the people goes away. They will not wait for 10 minutes maybe to take on a public transport. They will go for the other means. Then the comfort, that's a luxury if you have, but we have seen in Europe and other countries, public transportation, they come with a lot of comfort and convenience at the same time. Here in Pakistan, the fundamental question again comes the affordability. If a public transportation mean is not affordable, like what we have recently seen in Lahore with the metro train, there, one stop to stop fare was at 40 rupees. That failed to bring in the customers and the passengers on the metro train. They had to, now reduce it. But by the time they reduced it, the reliability of the people has already blown away due to this factor. So that's why they are still not reverting to this metro train, which was a very expensive medium for a country like ours, over 250 billion rupees, and still we are carrying less than 50,000 passengers, while whole subsidy for the province of Punjab is less than 15 billion, and we are carrying at least 1 million passengers in Punjab on very small networks we have established. And then obviously, like any business, like any service, it has to be sustainable, it has to be long term. So the sustainability that comes from the affordability of the governments that provide those services, it has to maintain the quality of standards and the quality of the services they are providing. That again, we have an example in Lahore, that metro train being operated may not be extremely sustainable, as it has a very high capital cost to begin with. And then the commercial loans and the international loans that come with that. Again, the electricity is being provided by the government, and the cost of the input in energy is soaring so high that it is not looking sustainable. Government might have to look at a lot of things while planning for a longer term for such projects. So this is pretty much the fundamental qualities a public transportation system needs to have. And there are certain examples we can give, like in Tokyo. I've seen in Tokyo there are at least maybe 15 million people who use this Tokyo transportation system every day. Similarly, in London, they are the larger ones. They have all kind of integrated networks like buses, trains, tubes, ferries, and local rails also, other than the metros. And then for the country like ours, like is this example in Brazil, they have a wonderful rapid transit bus system that covers a large part of the city. And similarly, in Latin America actually is the leader of in the bus rapid transit system. Almost all the countries have very good and reliable bus transit system there, which not only supports the requirement of the public, but also comes at a less cost and less time. This is why we call it reliable and more suitable for developing countries, especially. From here, we understand that there are always examples to be followed. The countries that have developed, they have done few good things. That's why they are so effective and efficient public transportation systems. So while we look at Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi, Peshawar, Quetta, Multan, or our cities, we need to learn the lessons from them. Currently, as a country, we are facing with an extreme challenge, that is the environmental issues. And this has not only, cost us extremely high, but also we are looking at it as an impediment for our future going concern and outlook as a sustainable country. In 2022, most of the country had so many rains that there is a very large number of people which is still unable to find a roof in such extreme weather. Today we are sitting in Lahore, but I can tell you there will be few people from Lahore here. They can concur that it's a midday already and we are unable to see the sun. This is the environmental and issues related to that. Whole, the province of at least 12 million people, 120 million people, is unable to move today from their own homelands to hometowns to other places. This is, it didn't happen in one day. We were very careless regarding our policies and regarding our preferences about vehicle and the industry we are running. So this is, we have seen that a lot of countries, they have gone to the cleaner energy and they have put in extremely strict vehicle emission standards. I was in London a couple of decades ago while studying. So I bought a car for 180 pounds for myself, a very good Honda Accord, 10 years old. But when I went for the fitness certificate, which is essential for any vehicle to be operated on the road, it cost me 400 pounds, at least 2.5 times more than the actual cost of the vehicle. So this is where the strict vehicle emission standards come in, that prevent bad traffic on the roads and make the environment safe. Then at this moment, if we see all around the world, especially the countries that are more developed, like Scandinavians or the Americans, the alternative fuel is the way to go. More than 50% of all new vehicles being bought in Europe are electrical. Similarly, the fastest growing company for the greener vehicles is the Tesla and the Neos, who are giving electric vehicles. So this is where our country needs to come up and take a few lessons. We have to move towards that. While everybody is in agreement that in IT and intelligent and artificial intelligence is the way to go, and we can say everywhere it's happening, but we have unable to employ basic information transportation systems in our country. Even the most sophisticated industries like airlines, they are unable to bring intelligence systems in Pakistan. We are having to rely on the people. We are having to rely on the expensive means of transportation management system. So the other couple of lessons is the safety regulations in our country. This is a very big challenge. It's such a big challenge that we are unable to even comprehend it at this moment. We have no idea what we are doing with our safety regulations. In Punjab, and if you go to any rural part of Sindh or KP, the highest number of vehicles we see on the road for public transportation is Chingchi, which is the most unsafe and un-environment friendly mean of transportation. But the biggest challenge it puts to our economy as a country is that it has dried up all the vocational capacity of the country. In our days, we used to see if some people are not good at education, they would go and learn some vocational skill and set up their own businesses. But while this is the easiest way to enter into any earning system, the changes they have not only eaten up the vocational capacity of our country, but they are putting up an extremely big challenge for the safety. Every day we see the accidents being happening on the roads, and then again the motorbikes, the other means of safety. I remember I got my license from London, and it was a very tough job getting a license there. Well, I was really surprised to know that for driving a motorcycle in Europe or England, they had 10 times more stricter and difficult driving tests, theoretically and practically. And then we felt very, relieved that it's okay. In Pakistan, we don't even need a license for driving a motorbike. But the sad part of this is in every household in our urban population and also the rural, there is a story that is told regarding an accident which took some lives or, made some people disabled. Finally, the road pricing mechanisms, that is an extremely, challenging part but still it can be learned. In London, again, I gave examples for London because I have had a long time stayed there. If there is a central London, which is more congested and smaller roads, if somebody wants to go there and park the car there, they have to pay the congestion charges. Similarly, if many people would have been to Makkah or Medina, especially Makkah, no vehicle coming from outside Makkah can enter the city. It cannot, make the roads more congested. So they have to park it outside the city. Similarly, Beijing, one of the largest cities in the world, they have the similar regulation. It is a very expensive cost to bring your car into the Beijing. You cannot drive it on the roads. You have to park and you have to pay very high parking fees. So this is where some sort of price income needs to come into our cities. If we see in Islamabad at 1:30 p.m., you will have to spend at least 40 minutes for any journey that should not take more than 10 minutes. So we are paying price anyway. But if the price is which can be of benefit to the general public, that is the helpful part, and that is the way to go. And we have seen the people doing it very successfully. The same amount then can be used for the public benefits and the projects for their benefit. So the potential solutions, we have talked about the problems, the solutions. Obviously, that comes again with the very strong public policy from the governments and the intelligentsia of the society. Like Europe has already gone to the non-motorized transportation, the cycle, and we used to have this a lot, but unfortunately, due to the easy access of motorbikes and chingchis and rickshaws, we have almost abandoned this. We need to go back to these non-motorized transportations. Our traffic management, this is a very usual part of our life now. We are happy with the bad traffic. We don't do much. We can just wait. If there will be a lot of people among the audience that they need to go from Islamabad towards Faisal or maybe towards Gulberg Green or even to DHA. Every day, I know this because we operate a route there. So every day in the evening, it's very easy to be late for like 1 hour, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Why it happens? Because we don't have very strong traffic management measures. People are doing whatever they want. This is a truly free country, especially when it comes to the road commuting. There is always, people colliding into each other, and again, why it happens, it is one sprout of being bad urban planning, of route planning, and traffic management system. So this is where we need to improve our urban planning, and all the master plans for the bigger cities. They need to bring in more traffic friendly and more user friendly laws and rules to make things better. Again, the clean energy, we have already talked about it. That is the way to go. It has to come in, and it has to come in sooner. The biggest thing that needs to be done, that needs to be changed, is the public investment should be going into the public transport. Unfortunately, if we look at, for example, Islamabad, there is a zero public transportation system, which almost burdens the economy of this, and the quality of life of the city is unbearable. And that is probably the only capital in the whole world which doesn't have a public transport system. And our way of thinking and how we take up the things are extremely, unrealistic towards the modern age and day we live in. So there is a lot we need to do for the public transport mechanism to bring in all the cities. Anywhere, every money goes, there is a very sustainable public transportation in Europe, in America, in the Far East, in ASEAN, in Russia. Public transportation is the way to go. That not only saves us the economic cost, it also gives a lot of people a lot of means to earn for their living, and then the country also gets helps for burning the less fuel per capita and consuming less space per capita while commuting. How it happens, then governments, they need to come for incentives for people to use less of their cars or less of their bikes. That rides on the public incentive. That happens in China. There are a lot of incentives being given to the people who buy electric cars or do the carpooling for the tax and registration costs. So this is pretty much it, Dr. Sabha. I had to say I'm sure that I've been unable to cover all the things that were unexpected from us, but I hope there will be questions and answers. We'll be able to cover a few things. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Abdur Sahab, for a very comprehensive presentation. I'm glad and I'm really happy that all the points that we have been discussing off and on, while you were in Islamabad or you were in Lahore, all the points have been covered. The floor is now open for question and answer as per the format of our webinar. So if you have any questions, please raise your hands. All right, if there are no questions, then I have some of them right now. Abdur Sahab, thank you so much for letting us know about how you started, and you took us through the journey of how you started Faisal Movers and how you started on the routes where there was no transport available, which was a very strategic move for sure. The market entry, you've already talked about it, that there's a requirement of 50 canals of land if you want to have a terminal. So we have seen Faisal Movers sharing terminals, right? So this was basically the outcome of this requirement that you had to fulfill. Yes. You were supposed to have 50 canals of land for every terminal. So we have seen Faisal Mover all over the country sharing terminals with other transport entities.
Yes, you are right.
So
that also comes with a lot of management issues. It's not always easy to make the sharing arrangement possible, because people with smaller interest, they are the worst to be hit, while people with the larger interest in the terminals, they have the larger part, the lion's share. So that the entry barrier remains as it is, while people have to find alternate markets and routes where they can establish their services like the Faisal Mover had to do. So this is one thing. The sharing is, one solution, but is not the comprehensive solution. Solution is either, if in other countries there are terminals provided by the government and the people operate their services, and like the airports, there that are provided by the aviation authorities, and the airlines are open to give their services there. And then it is competition for the pricing and for the quality and for the coverage. But unfortunately, for the even in the shared terminal, this is not the solution that is required.
All right. So in terms of competition, so what has Faisal Mover done? I mean, this was the first thing you told us about was, picking up the routes where there was no transport running. So what were the other aspects of your business or your buses, the quality of the buses, the leg room? What were the other features that made you able to sustain the business? As you're saying, it's a very costly business, but you were able to sustain the business and run successfully on the roads.
Well, as we said that the transportation routes we took on were the most neglected ones, as the southern Punjab is underdeveloped. And for example, I'm not sure if you have seen DG Khan. DG Khan would have never had even thought of a very good public transport with the luxury and with the modern amenities. So this is where we had to, and that is why it took us so long. That the Daewoo had already set a standard, let me admit that. They put up a new horizon on the transportation in our country. The most of the people, even Faisal movers to some extent, had to follow that suit. But we were on the biggest route in our country that operates is from Lahore to Islamabad, and then that is extended to Peshawar and other parts. So it took us almost 10 years to get onto this route. We had to establish our own market in the southern part of the province. From there, it was, the demand driven from customers in the south. And obviously, it is a huge market. There's a very large of people that commute on this route. So while there is a decline in the train system, that also made this route more viable for the bus operators. So the things we did were not, it didn't happen overnight. We had to establish a customer base. Only then we were able to expand it to other parts. That is a sustainable and more mature way of spreading yourself. Otherwise, we have seen people, they start business like a very large network, try to catch up and compete the market with an aggressive pricing policy, which is not sustainable most of the time. And still, customers tend to be loyal in the services regarding their comfort and luxury. I hope.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Abdur. So we have a couple of questions. Mohammed Bilal sir, please introduce yourself, unmute your mic, and please introduce yourself before asking questions.
Myself Mohammed Bilal. I am a program coordinator at Institute of Urbanism, Islamabad. I have two questions actually. One is the Faisal Movers is planning to bring electric vehicles to their fleet, or they must be sustainable in a way that they should be charged by solar energy. So, are they planning that kind of projects? And the second is, I think they don't have any bicycle parking and motorbike parking at their terminals. So they are planning for specific parking places or not? Thank you.
Okay, Bilal sir, thank you very much for your very valid question. Actually, in all this talk and discussion, we have missed one part, which I just remembered from your question. What Faisal Mover is considering as a business regarding electric buses. Bilal, the thing is, electric buses or electric buses technology is in use all over the world, but in a limited mechanism. Mostly, well, almost 99% of the electric buses in the world being used are on the, intracity or urban transportation. Why this the battery technology we have these days is not sustainable for longer journey from maybe from Lahore to Islamabad or even Islamabad to even Peshawar. It may not be a very doable thing. Where while every bus needs a very long time for getting charged, so only the urban transportation where they operate in the day and charge in the night is the way to go right now. I can tell you a good news for that. We had there is a project CDA is taking up in Islamabad already. It was a tender offered for 100 electric or hybrid buses, which Faisal won for hybrid buses, but again the government decided that they will go for electric buses. Now they are in the process of retendering the same. So very soon, I hope within 6 months, you're gonna see electric buses operating in Islamabad at least 150 buses. So this is where Faisal will be able to bring in electric buses definitely. But for this commercial public transportation, that may be a way to go in this regard, because available technology needs to complement this idea. While we have made ourselves already, a step ahead from the competition, we have signed MOUs with some companies in China and even in Germany for provision of electric buses technology. And we have signed MOUs and we'll be joining hands with them. But again, if we go for longer distance batteries, that is an extremely expensive equipment to buy. Unless there is a change in the technology that we are using, I hope there is a change very soon on the corner. Or we have to move on the smaller side, smaller pockets like urban transportation. That's where we are extremely committed and we are prepared, and you will see it happening, inshallah, very soon. The second question regarding the bikes, you must have heard some part of my discussion that one of the entry barriers is the terminals that are built for operating commercial transportation, public transportation. We are unable to find suitable places, suitable size of places in most of the cities we are operating. This is why there is again parking is connected to all the problems we are talking. If there is a sustainable public transportation system, you don't even need a bike to reach a terminal. So that is not so simple. The places we get to start our businesses or even run the business is not only very small, but also are very expensive. We definitely have this understanding that people need to be accommodated and they need to have the facilities when they come and go from our terminals. But again, that has some limitations that we have to contend with. But the point is taken. I definitely will look into this, and if we can do something, we'll try to do our best, inshallah.
Right. We have another question. Omar Sadiq.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Umar Sadiq from PIDE. So I have just a very quick question. You mentioned that there is a paucity of skilled labor force, workers in your business, line of business. So what kind of skills do you seek when you, you are trying to hire people for your business?
Okay, is that all? Okay, sir,
yes.
this is a very small question, but it has a very big answer. About 10 years back, when I took over one of the biggest transportation company as the chief operating officer, the first challenge I had to face was the drivers. When I interacted with them, none of the drivers, hardly any driver I could find was educated. And then again, the process through which a person becomes a commercial driver is a very timid and very, disturbing journey. A child which, obviously, it's not considered as a career that the people will adopt for themselves or for the children. Most of the people who come into this line are the runaways from the schools or the family business as well. So a very young kid have to come into this line, and while reaching up to the steering, that kid has to go through a lot of things which are very challenging, both morally, physically, and mentally. So by the time he becomes a driver and is able to drive, his social skills and social behavior is already framed in a way that there is very little concern regarding the morality and regarding the compliance of legal requirements, and obviously the business owners. They have very difficult and different way of thinking. So this is where the challenges come. They have very little ownership. They can, just leave a vehicle anywhere and run away at any time, while they may be carrying goods of worth hundreds of millions or carrying passengers. Similarly, that due to lack of training and moral standards, they can do anything to any vehicle. The biggest challenge for any commercial transportation company in this country is the theft of fuel. We have been unable to control the theft of fuel by employing so many different means and so many different resources. So that is the part when I said the human resource. We don't have a trained human resource. Drivers are not trained. They acquire the skill by going through certain process. Similarly, if you look at the technical staff, the workshop staff, very few of them are, from any polytechnic institute or vocational education background. Most of them are just, they have learned by going there in a workshop and going through a timid process of becoming a mechanic or helper mechanic or anything. So that's what I said when I said that we have not the quality human resource for our industry. We have tried. I've tried myself. Actually, I tried to bring in women, and we still have a plan for women drivers in Orange Line, inshallah, within this year. Then I tried to incentivize the performance of the people. In a company, I have tried to give incentives to the people who get their children educated for offering their children jobs or some scholarships. But still, it is a very large challenge because there is no proper system. If you know of any, vocational institution that gives you a proper training for public vehicle transportation or commercial vehicle transportation, there is none maybe. There is one, maybe NHA is offering some courses. We have tried that. Also, we once hired a whole batch of drivers they trained, but that again was not demand driven. That was an aid driven project which brought in people for some stipend on scholarships. None of them turned into what we would want. I'm a professional accountant by my education and experience. We go through a process and then we go through the ranks and become, I started as an accountant, then I became a manager, then I became a senior manager, then I went into, other sites, and now I enjoy the highest position that one can enjoy as a chief operating officer. But for a driver, there is no career path. For a mechanic, there may be, the best thing you would be able to do is to open his own workshop for certain parts or certain mechanical work. So while there is no career path, ideally as a transport company, what we want is people have some background education, some training. And then if those people give their services as drivers, for example, we'll be able to promote them as supervisors and then the managers, provided they need to have the basic required education or the skills that are needed for the managers or people more than drivers. This is one side of the challenge. And then there are other side of the whole story that comes with the, the cost of having expensive resources and its impact for the competitiveness. So the pretty much what I said is which was referred to as the quality of human resource.
So I have another question. You said something about non-motorized mode of transport, and you mentioned something about capitals, especially not having. At the same time, you mentioned about capitals not having, planned transport systems or mass transport systems. So how do you view the transport planning in Pakistan? You're in touch with a lot of government agencies that are involved in it. How do you view it? And Faisal Movers do have a plan of electrical vehicles, and you're in the process. So why I would just like your opinion on the governance of the transport sector and the policies that are being designed, and uh, uh, what do you think about them?
Okay, Darshan, this is the difficult question now. Non-motorized transportation is the bicycles. Uh, this is what we have seen in last 10 years. The London City Council has built a whole network of bicycle lanes in the city, which is promoting people to buy the bicycles and giving them exclusive routes and means for that, and giving some subsidy also. So this is, and if you say you must have been aware of the fact, like country like Holland, they have the largest per capita bicycles. That is not just happening by chance. That has to be coupled with certain public policy, the government policies, and then an awareness among the people that going through a bike is a seriously important way of life. There is an old joke you must have heard that the doctors, they joined together and they were discussing in some part of Europe, what should we do to improve our business? So they were, most of them gave their ideas, but finally they came up with one idea that you need to, take people away from the bicycles. The bicycle is not only helpful for the health of every individual, but also health of the cities we live in, the trees we live through, and the burden on the economy of the country. That is one non-motorized thing when I say. Then again, this battery powered, if I've seen in China, there is within last say 6-7 years, every city of China, they have this bike sharing companies. They just leave the bikes on one different place in the city. People just charge it through their apps and drive it wherever they want, and they leave it there, tenant there. So that is, the Peshawar have started it while they brought in their, first generation BRT system. And if you see the numbers in Peshawar, the user of bikes have increased at least 70% from 2021 to 2022. That is one way actually. And then electric bikes with the battery driven, that is very much into most of the people from our common household, they need to travel as an individual. And maybe we don't have to go more than 4 to 5 kilometers for our work or for our education, for anything, the normal, chores we need to do in the market. So this is where the motorized, non-motorized, electric, maybe scooties or things like that, where government can give some incentives and keep a track of that. That will be really helpful for every individual that is having a motorbike, and that motorbike is not only putting up a risk to the user, but also a risk to the other people on the road. So, and again, the economic cost attached to that. That may not be very difficult to replace with these bikes or electric scooties, especially for the women in our country. This commuting is more challenging part. The electric scooters that are very useful for that. Every young girl or woman, they can handle it easily and come and go to office or work or education at any time, anywhere. That was the first part regarding the bikes. Second part regarding the public policy, that part needs serious thinking to be done. What we are doing most of the time as public institutions or the people who are responsible for making decisions for that affect the lives of people, we are trying to, win the medals and make shift arrangements and ad hoc policies. But there is no long-term sustainable policy that is focused on transportation of our people. So that is the very reason there is no transportation system in Pakistan, because people did not have any transportation or any serious thought over this important part of the social life. Again, there are three services that are the most integral part of any civic or social life. Obviously, the education, and then this health and the transportation. So we have failed on all of the three, but the worst failure we have had is in the public transportation sector. There is no integration in transportation policies. There is again, we have talked about few barriers in getting licenses or having the entry barrier or the status of the industry. But even if we do all these things, unless and until our focus is on the well-being of the people of the country or the cities and the economic impact of any policy, there is no solution or no respite in sight. I have already given a lot of examples from our country and other countries as well. You are at the helm of a very important institution, PIDE. Do you know if any government has asked think tank like yours or other public entities to come up with a sustainable 10 years transportation policy? We have had this, you have mentioned in the early 2000s, there was a very serious thought on this carriage of goods by road. Every province and every government in this country has failed to implement the fundamental parameters on the roads. There is axle to weight ratio, the size, number of axle to engine ratio for the weight to the engine power ratios, the size of the vehicles. Then, for example, if we go into liquid transportation, we often hear that so many dozens of people were burnt in after an oil tanker exploded. Why this oil tanker explodes? It cannot explode. It has to be ADR compliant. ADR is international standard for transporting the dangerous goods and cargo. The vehicles are not ADR compliant. So that's why there are all these accidents. Most of them don't even get reported. So the institutions of this country, they have failed. The roads, NHA has failed. And the police is obviously, for whatever reason, they are part and parcel of the crime. The compliance, why we have fewer accidents on motorways? It's very simple. There is the compliance ratio of the compliance is higher there. Every vehicle needs to get weighed and pay for the weight they're carrying on the motorway. And then they have to ensure certain compliance. So not only have we failed on making the policies, we have failed to understand the challenges we are facing in 21st century, and we have failed to implement the older policy we have had. On both three parts of any useful outcome to have, we need to have a sustainable planning and plan. Then we need to have a progressive and future-looking ideas to look into. And then we need to implement. These are the three fundamental parts we have to show. By what we have done, we have failed on each part. Then there is a lot of politics. Then I can give you one example. In a city like Karachi, where we don't have any sustainable public transportation system, there is a mafia lying or ruling the roads of Karachi. No, they do not allow anybody to come on the road. They do not give any space for new entrants. So what is happening? The people of Karachi, the Karachi is the backbone of our country. They are having to, use those buses at least 30, 40 years old. Indian Supreme Court a few years back, they, gave a decision which prevented that no bus older than 15 years can be on the road or the commercial carrying goods. So what we are doing? What if you just, go towards Kahuta or any this Fatehjung on the other side of Islamabad, you will see the life of vehicles. And one big reason for the success of Faisal Movers was not just the buses. Most of the operators had similar buses, but the thing we had, which most of the people, especially our competitors like Daewoo, could not fathom, it was the age of the fleet. We have the youngest age of the fleet. Average age of the fleet is less than 2 years. While if you see at other people in the competition, their average age of the fleet is much higher. So I just can conclude that we haven't had a sustainable policy, we haven't had a future outlook, and we have been unable to implement through the law enforcement. So if there is anything to be done, that is to be done on all three parts, not just one, the policy, or we just give some people some whacking the wire, your vehicle emitting so much smoke and blah, blah, blah. Then there is a politics that needs to go out from this policy making system. We are a country, we are a federation. Transportation may have become a provincial subject after the 18th Amendment, but this doesn't mean that the same road that we are using in Islamabad or the same road that goes from Lahore to Karachi can have same different laws and different compliance things. This is where we have to come together. And then the other two things also, the health and the education. It has to be similar, it has to be standard. The child being born in Parachanar have the right to study the same substance that my child studies in Lahore, or the people that live in Islamabad enjoy the similar health facilities. That needs to be given to the child being born in the Turbat. And similar, this transportation, the access to the transportation, that has to have all those 9 attributes I just mentioned. It needs to be made available to all over the country, and that will come only after we have a centralized and future-oriented policy that is implemented. So if you want me to categorize things, 1, 2, 3, we need to do this. The problem I indicated while we started our business, that is the problem everybody faces. The qualities we need to bring in, I have listed 9 different things. That is the thing that everybody has to bring in on a public transportation policy. And I think I've spoken too much on this question.
Well, thank you, Rehman sir. Well, talking about quality and international standards, we have, I want to hear something from Malik Waqar sir on how Faisal Mover is trying to set standards. I mean, how you are progressing, or what efforts are being made to meet the international standards which are required for transport. So Malik Waqar sir, what is your take on it?
Yeah, Dr. Sabha, thank you very much. Actually, we had a very comprehensive discussion and very comprehensive presentation by Abdur Rehman Sahab, and he actually encompassed all the prospective questions. So now the international, regarding the international standards, first of all, we are trying to have our own, you can say, terminals at the moment, because especially in sharing terminals, we are very much, you can say, we have very much limited resources to implement our own views, our own thinking, our own standards, because of the challenges the co-partner. So now, first of all, we are focusing on having our own terminals. And second is, we are digitalizing our terminals in future, so that our passenger may feel the pride and the speciality to be while onboarding or while on dislodging. And
one
in
thing
this,
I will like to add, just
please.
Kasa,
Yeah,
I
please,
just
please.
said that we have missed one part of the discussion, that what we are thinking of future. So one thing I
Yeah,
just want to add, what you've already said, is we are going international, inshallah. We are starting up public transportation services for Afghanistan and the other countries also. We have already made a lot of progress in that with the governments. And then we have already on the logistics sides, and luckily Waqar Sahab is with us, who is heading that project. We have obtained the license of TIDE, that is the Convention for the International Logistics by the United Nations. So I'll be very happy if Waqar Sahab can give some insight on these things. Internationally, we are trying to expand ourselves. And then in the end, I may be putting a few words regarding our future plans, inshallah.
And regarding actually TIR, Dr. Sabah, this is Transport and Talks Routier. Basically, it's the abbreviation of Transport and Talks Routier. We are the member of almost one of the 80th countries who are already in this member of this TIR. For this, we don't have to get any custom minings, especially on the borders, while entering the country or leaving the country. So we just had to issue the carnet from PNC ICC, that is Pakistan National Committee for International Chamber of Commerce. This carnet actually is the paper which custom needs to check while our cargo, our carriers will enter in the country and while they will leave that country. And if we send our cargo from Pakistan to, you can say, Kazakhstan, there are two countries in between, Afghanistan and Uzbekistan, then we will reach to Kazakhstan. But in this, while we are having this TIR license and we are moving our cargo under the license of TIR, we don't need to go in the customs of Afghanistan or Uzbekistan. We will directly, our vehicle will directly go to Kazakhstan. We will hand over that piece of paper to the custom of Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. This is actually international. This is under International Road Transport Union (IRU), and it is governed by. Hello, are you getting? Am I audible?
Ji Malik Sahab, you're audible.
Yeah. One means of the logistics, which we are nowadays focusing on, and we have already in start of February we will be on road under this IRU. Mr. Abdur, up to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Waqar. I hope this covers one part of our future plans, that is we are going on our own borders, both in terms of commercial and public transportation. So in the next phase, we're going to have our offices in Central Asian states because we look at this huge potential of large land mass, but what we are the southern part of. The warm waters, so-called, we are not the owners but custodian a large part of that. So our future concern goes towards that. We've already had few consignments run till Azerbaijan and Turkey, and there are only 3 companies in Pakistan who got this license. So luckily one company is ours. So from here, what we see as what is our outlook for company as business, and then how can we contribute towards overall national economy and our own economy at the same time. So this is one is going beyond the borders. 2 is we are becoming an all integrated digital company that will have one window solution for all kinds of transportation and logistic needs, and that will obviously entail our commercial business also, where we already have very large stake. So, but we are going to expand that also into the warehousing and integrated distribution systems. Then again, in the public transportation, we look at the governments. I hope the fervor now is in favor of establishing public transportation systems. So we having the largest stakes in the country will be a big, entity to reckon with when it comes to competition for public transportation or BRT systems or even train systems. So I hope we've been able to cover that. Otherwise, what we are looking at, how we do. But then again, this technology, we'll be looking at the alternate means of technology as and when possible. And if it is viable commercially, we'll inshallah be the first people to bring to the country. So, Dr. Sabah, over to you. From us, we have, I hope that the agenda you had issued with us, we have tried to cover most of the things. I don't know how successful we have been.
Well, thank you so much, Abdur Sahab, and thank you, Malik Waqar Sahab. Yes, we still have a lot of questions to talk about, especially, we want to go into the depth of intra-city transport mechanisms, the systems, the future of the intra-city transport also. Well, for international transport or for intercity, I think there's, as we discussed, there isn't much of a problem in that. But why compliance is not taking place, why standards are not being met when in terms of when it comes to intracity, where we have major portion of accidents taking place, where we have major concern of safety regulations, where major chunk of the population is commuting from one part of the city to the other for their jobs, for their schools, for their education, for their employment. So this is something we would like to discuss in detail with you again, and also the commercial part of the cargo, the freights that you're carrying. Would like to discuss that again with you. I hope you'll be available for PIDE for another webinar on it. So thank you so much. Thank you all the participants. Thank you Abdur Sahab, and thank you Malik Waqar Sahab. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, madam.
Sir.
We are very honored to be, heard, and we really appreciate your efforts. We wish you the best of luck, and please, we are pledging our unconditional support. Will be available for any part we can play in, anything better we can do.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. All the best.
Thank you.